Okay, it is 1:04. I'm going to welcome all you great people to our webinar, and we'll have a lot of fun with this because this is real life. I just got a spreadsheet of 30 clients in a senior living community. Now, what the heck do I do? This is how we felt. So we want to share that experience with you because we've also got a number of Cinch customers that have been faced with that same situation. Home care company pulled out. Here's your list. We need you to come in and provide the care. And at that time, when we did this in 2017, we had no clue what we were doing. So okay. So yeah, let's get started. I want to introduce. I am the. I guess I'm kind of. Let me get back in the zone here. Tim Murray. I'm CEO of Cinch, uh, with my co-founder and wife Gina. And a lot of people know we had a home care agency for almost 7 years. 2014, we sold it in 2020 in December, and community care became a huge part of our success. It was a wonderful experience. Micah Kilgore was our administrator. He was our right hand. We cut our teeth on community care together, and together we built this application where we have Micah, the administrator in billing, and Gina in nursing and scheduling, myself in operations, and then our caregivers. And we interviewed our caregivers, and that's how Cinch came to be. And we like to say Cinch was developed by caregivers, for caregivers. So here we go. um, Welcome to the deep end. And isn't it amazing what AI can do, guys? I mean, I'm just fascinated by this picture. I just described a scenario that I wanted to create, and AI cranked this out. And I just worked on the Cinch. Like I said, I want you to use our Cinch logo on, but this was the scene I remember when a home care agency literally pulled out, and I met the owner in a Starbucks, and he gave me the spreadsheet, said, hire as many caregivers you want. I'm out of here. And the executive director was in a panic. And we came into that Wednesday before Thanksgiving to be announced home care agency and set up shop. When we did a meet and greet, the faces around the residents was like, well, here's another one.
Look just like them.
They're going to crash and burn just like the other three did. I looked at Gina and said, what have we got ourselves into? So no worries. Welcome to the deep end, but we're going to get you out of the deep end. We're going to be the life preserver for you. Spoiler alert, community care does not equal traditional care. And I think everybody in this call that's in it, experienced it, I know there's a number of you out there, you're with me on this, is a really set of new rules. It's a different business model. It requires different hires. And to be able to successfully do this and do fractional care, where you go from one to one, that's pretty straightforward. But when you go to one to many or many to many, that is a scheduling logistical challenge. And you need to be cognizant of the situation and select the right tool. And we're one of those tools that was designed for fractional short visit care. And the big thing in this environment we learned really quickly is caregivers, you benefit, they work as a team. And because the reality, we call this cinch pivot, is when a caregiver, the hammer goes down at 06:30 and your caregivers are now on the scene providing care, there are delays. It's like a train system and you need to reroute. And what Cinch does is the back office doesn't have to do that. The caregivers are empowered to help each other and proper documentation. That is a superpower. And so the first point is this is a different business model, and you need to accommodate that and build how you're going to do this from operations stand your staffing and technology. Good news, there are solutions for it. So the playbook, I asked, hey AI, create me a playbook. There's our playbook. Um, and it's almost like, you watch the infomercials. Follow my 7 steps and you're going to be a real estate guru, right? Well, these are 7 steps that we followed. Gina, Mike, and I sat down and said, okay, what did we learn? And then moving forward, if we were going to coach and advise somebody, what would it be? That's what we're going to share with you right now.
Not the 7 steps we took, because we took about 27 steps in all different directions when we started our first community. So this is what we've learned over the years.
Thank you, co-founder. The right, it, well, right. This is an armchair quarterback. We're going back in time, right? So we had disaster, and we learned, and then we recovered, and then later communities we just got better and better as we went into them, and we applied this methodology. Um, this is so important when you're sitting down with the community. Set expectations. It makes sense, right? In life, whether you're a manager, leader, and your personal, it's just setting the right expectations of what you can and what you can't do. And I know we've all made those times where we've overcommitted. Well, my advice is undercommit and overdeliver. Set yourself up for success instead of failure. And in terms of getting off on the right foot with the community, you want to be on the same page with the executive director, the staff, your clients, and the family members. So the first thing is we are a place at home, Nashville, or whatever your home care agency is. Here's our service model. Here's how you can communicate with us. Here's how we're going to handle pending calls. Here, you set the expectation of what you can do. And when you do that, that sets the stage for success. So now you're on the same page. Well, you said no, no, we didn't. We said this is it. This is the way we're going to deliver our services. Um, and that's a good experience. One of the things we advise you to be successful in community care, you absolutely have to have the backing, the blessing of the executive director and the staff. And they view you as an asset. That's very key. So this is an important kind of step one in the playbook.
Well, I think it's important that the community staff knows what your services are, what you can do and what you can't do. We did a really good job explaining it to the residents, but we had a second community thought that there were other things that we should be doing that was not part of our services. So once we got on the same page and the staff understood that they were asking us to do things that by North Carolina regulations we could not do for the residents, things got a whole lot smoother. And they didn't know, we didn't know
Yeah.
that they had those expectations. So that was really important.
Yeah, the on-call needs is an important one. We found some of the agents for us, and we really felt bad for them. Is they let the community run them versus them running the community. And an example is pendant calls, and they overcommitted on doing pendant calls, and they did it. That led to not so great things. So it's very important to if pendant calls is part of that community, who's responsible for them, what you can and can't do. If they want 24/7 coverage, somebody's got to pay for it, right? So, you know, that those are all things when you're working with us, we have your little checklist. We walk you through, are you prepared for these scenarios? Is your business model prepared for it? And so forth. So set expectations that will, feel really good you did that. Because if you miss on this, then it will be tough. This is an incredibly important step when you're given this list. You don't have to, and you shouldn't have to abide by what the previous home care agency did. Okay? You want to learn from it. You want to, because many times people give us the pricing that the previous home care agency had, and to be completely honest with you, it was like I need, where's the cipher? Where's my key so I can understand how this works? Because I can't. Right? This is the KISS principle. You don't have to abide by their pricing and packaging. In that transition, what we said is give us 30 to 45 days to really settle in. We'll honor that pricing, but we reserve the right to change it and expect that to happen. Okay, because you got to take care of your caregivers and you've got to operate a profitable business, right? Um, the needs assessment. This is so important to really understand the horses. What are you getting into? You know, and ask questions. Are they happy with the care? If not, why? Okay, well, what kind of services would be helpful to you? We can do 15-minute, 30-minute, 45. What would be helpful to you? Well, what kind of help would you need? And you can have a list of things. This is concierge care. So this isn't, primarily medical. In fact, it's non-medical mostly. And some people, this is about what can improve the well-being of this person. And that could be they just want a companion to hang out with them and read them stories, right? Or help them get to events where now their mobility issues they can't get to anymore. So they get out of isolation. Or what are your plan? Walk the dog, escort the meals, medication. We can go through the list of you guys well know that, right? Find out how often do they want them? And digital tools, we help with a survey. There's lots of tools. We use JotForm, and we basically empowered the executive director to send it out, via email with a link to the residents and the sons and daughters. That was very important to get both perspectives because they're not often on the same page, right? And Gina's smiling.
I know.
I mean, my mother didn't need any care, and I'm going, she needs lots of care, especially if you're dealing with early onset of dementia and so forth, right? So you want to triangulate, you want to get everybody's perspective, including the community, right? Community knows a lot. Um, just fast forwarding, one of the best things we did is we had a town hall where the executive director invited the entire staff. You're talking everybody, housekeeping, uh, uh, meals,
Diane.
food services, um, everybody. And what Gene emphasized with them was you are the eyes and ears of this community. You know things we're never going to know. You see them all the time. You'll see if the room's messed up. You'll detect certain things. Talk to your supervisor. Raise it to the community care manager so we can tell us. Um, so I know I'm going forward a little bit, but really this is a great thing for the ED because they look good, right? When they're proactive, they're sending a survey out. It's like, oh, he or she really cares about me, and this is a really important thing. And it's like trust with verification. You had the old company doing this. You want to kind of you have a chance for a fresh start. So you want to get as much data as you can, and usually executive directors are really good. And you can use other tools like SurveyMonkey and other mechanisms to do your survey. And we have sample surveys too. In our consulting package, we have a couple of samples that we use, and they can be customized. So that's step two, needs assessment. Step three, very important. And again, whatever the old company did, take it as a data point. And there may be some goodness there. But if they failed, there was probably good reasons for it. And typically, the big culprit is they got too fancy or they designed packages or the way they were doing it, they couldn't deliver on it and be profitable. That's typically the culprit. And when we work with companies, we had one recently that had the opportunity. They were given the spreadsheet. They described the community, and this wasn't a upper end, it was more lower income. And those are kind of tough situations where you're operating on a very limited budget and the clients don't have a lot of money. And they showed us what the old and this is what's proposing. And we looked at it and we honestly said, you're not going to be viable.
Yeah.
You're not paying your caregivers enough. And when you pay them, they're not going to, it was just a tough situation. Long story short, they didn't take it. Not every community is a good fit, you know? So your services and pricing, don't copy the old model. Study what failed. You have an opportunity to make it right and something you can deliver on. And we just say, KISS. Keep it simple. The time tested, easy one is just like you do traditional. Time. People get it. They get custom care, and you say for a 15-minute visit, this is what we can do. So your nurse, whoever's doing the assessment, is making that call based on what they want, how much time, and it costs X. A simple thumb rule is, 1 minute is a buck, so 15-minute is $15. Now every state's different, but it's pretty close. Um, so you want to have as crisp and simple pricing model. And your acid test is to take it, hand it to the executive director. If they don't get it, there's a failure. Um, when they give it to us, if we can't get it, that's a definite failure. Um, give it to a client. Do you get to you'll see it in their face without you having to explain it in great depth. The minute you're going through and explaining it in great depth, you realize that you're not achieving your goal. So keep it as simple as possible. And that time works that we did in Cinch. We now introduce packaging. There is benefits to it. You just got to be able to explain it well.
Well, it's all based on time in the package, you know. It's still based on time.
Right. There's various ways to do this. And then what we advise when you develop your collateral, you have and this is to help you in biz dev to go into other communities. You create a community facing piece of collateral and how you're going to help them. And how you're going to help them is very simple. Improve the well-being of the residents. You do that, they stay longer, their census can rise or get to the point of a wait list. That's great stuff. That's what you do. And for the client, it's similar messaging, but a bit different. It's not census or thing like that. You're about well-being and improving their happiness factor in the community, um, and helping them stay there longer. That's where they want to stay. So, but it's two pieces there. So you're armed with that. Technology. Um, ooh, I didn't do that. Technology. You need a technology, and you have a lot of choices out there. There are. And we coach people and consult where they're not using Cinch. Okay. What? Because it's all about you. It's not about us. We developed this tailor-made, we call purpose-built for fractional care and team-based, caregivers working. And that was honestly one of the most heartwarming things to watch those caregivers get their jobs done with a smile on their face and this cool little phone thing to get through the day quick and talk to each other, message each other. Cool. And if there's another technology out there that can do that well, go with what you feel is best. But point, you got to have the right tools, right? Gina likes to use the analogy in the gold rush. We're better off selling the right tools, right? You don't have the right tools, you're not going to get the job done well, right? So you got to align your technology with the way you're going to do this, your methodology and the way you're going to staff it. They all come together. Um, we're one of those that was designed for this. And we also can play with others like WellSky and Access Care. But we have a lot of clients just using Cinch and a standalone and using whatever system they are to do their payroll. And they cleverly put a client in their technology platform versus the community, and then Cinch does all the other magic. So there's various
And,
ways to do it.
and scalability too. Cinch will give you the ability to have 100 clients in a community, 100 clients in one place and be able to schedule them effectively. So, a lot of technologies can function if you have 10 or 12, clients.
Yeah.
Definitely doable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we don't, when we're talking to people or prospects and whatever, it's whatever's right for you. But the technology scale, thank you for saying that. That's what it was designed. We got thrown into a community, or we got the opportunity. We had 93 on service. Can you imagine that? Simultaneously, we had 6 to 8 caregivers in the morning. That's where Cinch really shined, you know. So the main point is there's a step where you nail the technology, make sure it's all working together. Everything works from scheduling and billing, right? The all important. And then do you have to submit to long-term care insurance? You got to make sure that's all, or VA. It's all properly documented. I had a 5A and 5B here. I realized I had to break this up. Um, but staffing. This is a, we learned this is again, a different business line and there's different staff, just new roles that you recreate. And we created a community care coordinator position. And this person will spend time, whether part-time or full-time, depending on the size of the community, and be the face to the community. And it's kind of a multi-purpose. This is a very person that is very outgoing, um, loves people, um, can do scheduling, kind of a number of skills to do it. And they don't have to necessarily be on site. They can be part of your scheduling team. They just have responsibilities to the community and know that they're monitoring that community. They're over there at certain times. In the big community we had a full-time community care coordinator all the time. Your caregivers, the role of this a caregiver in this environment, the profile is a bit different than your traditional. And as you probably are nodding your head, it's kind of a social position because you're assigned a list of people to see versus this is my one client. And so you're going to look for an outgoing, team-oriented caregiver. That's that can multitask. That's kind of quick because you're on a fast pace. Imagine if we had 7 minute safety checks and then 15 minute, and they can handle that type of environment where I just want to sit with one client and just and take care of that. So it's recognize a different profile. Um, and depending on your state, we'll have a nurse. In the big community, we had a full-time nurse. In the smaller communities, we handle it with PRN. So, the assessments are similar, very similar to your normal traditional assessment, but you're doing it in a community, and you've got a lot more some more support there than you have in the house. So it's kind of a little bit of I don't know if you want to speak to it, Gina, in terms of the nurse and the assessment piece.
Right, you don't have as many challenges, because the environment is safe. But it was simpler. The assessments were a lot quicker. Didn't take quite as much time. So the nurse could get through, I could get through a lot of it, you know, 5 or 6 reassessments in a single day because they were all in the same building. So
Yeah. And the final piece is admin, that's Micah. Um, his life was pretty difficult when we didn't have the system, and he had this incredible unwieldy spreadsheet. And I thought if Micah got sick or he's out for a long time, we were toast, absolute toast.
there was
And
no
then
invoices.
people would change things, and right, Micah, you remember how that your life was?
Oh yeah,
If you want to comment.
it was just it was so complicated, right? You have to keep track of when visits are canceled and when they're added in, and it's just so complicated. So it was just yeah, as Tim said, it was difficult.
Yeah, and that's where the technology comes into play. And there's other good. We're not the only horse in town. It's just the point is just make sure it's all connected and the billing is simple. And with Cinch, that was really a godsend because once people got how we build and how it all worked, they got calm and trust was built in. And then everything kind of worked beautifully. And by the way, we did it all electronically. This is back in COVID days. We leveraged that situation and we did ACH. Yeah, but we did have a couple of those old schools that had to hand us a paper check. We handle that as an exception, but everything else was ACH. That was a beautiful thing, for more streamlined billing. 5B, metrics. This, I can't emphasize this enough, and I thought I'd just do a screenshot of the actual Cinch homepage. There's a lot more on the Cinch homepage, but the essential run your business KPIs is gross profit and caregiver utilization. And we learn from experience what the good numbers should be there. Uh, at 80% utilization, this community is really humming. That's our demo community. Um, but really 60% to be your average between 60 and 70, good stuff. Gross profit, 50% above, good stuff. And it just stares you in the face. And that's what I wanted. Gina always likes to pick on me. I'm the submariner and I had my gauges because in submarines, as you know, unlike the sea view, we don't have windows. Like we drove the submarine on sonar and displays. So they needed to give us the essential information so we can accurately and safely operate the ship. And that's what cinch is. You've got your indicators. And there's other measures, right? Caregiver satisfaction, client satisfaction, other KPIs and things that you bring all together to give you your health. Um, but whatever technology you're using, whatever you're doing, establish your metrics and do them monthly. As a team, we would review the staff, and we had by that we were was it now Client Insights? I always want to say Home Care Pulse,
Yep.
but Micah knows monthly, we went through that with a fine tooth comb. I read every caregiver survey, I read every client survey, and got so much out of that. So, besides the financials, let's remember what's really important: people. People before metrics. So, take care of your people, then you look at your financials. Is it coming together the way you want it to come together? Um, and Micah knows that Gina, we operated on our KPIs. We had our traditional care and we had different KPIs for traditional care, the way we were monitoring that. And then we had different KPIs for our community care metrics. That's why I want to do 5A and 5B to break out kind of the staffing and the metrics. Step 6, be prepared for this question. Hey, new guy, how are you going to come in and replace the other people? What's your plan? And I'll never forget that question being asked of Gina and myself. And I went to this, hey, Gina, I ducked the bullet. And, and this is one of the 93 community and the old home care agency was failing. And we had a heck of a time transitioning that care. Um, and they'd ask a great question, how are you going to transition care? Because Gina and staff had to do 93 assessments. So set the expectation right. Because the home care agency actually wanted to pull out like yesterday, and we wouldn't let them. They said, you have an obligation. And the community reminded them to take it out this length to give us time to do a orderly takeover, you know. And they had paper care plans. We actually had a shredding party. We went in there and we were opening up and we was like it seemed like everything coming out of our mouth was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know, it but the last time they did a reassessment was 1983. No, I'm kidding. I mean, but really, um, I guess I'm having fun with this, but it was really stressful time. Um, you need to complete steps 1 through 5, right? And then your team, your billing, your care. I mean, you got to step back and go, when can we take this on? Right? When are we going to have everything set? And, get the assessments done. Then you have service agreements they need to be signed. Factor all that in. And with Micah's help, we did PandaDoc. Everything was electronic. We tried, and we actually had a scheduler for people to schedule their assessments. And that was great. So Jeannie can manage that with the additional nurses that to do it. Now that was a big community. For smaller community, 20, it's a lot easier. But um, you're going to transition, and then part of that is the next one where you launch. It was fun. We had one of our customers call. They had a launch party. Um, you launch with purpose, and you do a meet and greet. This is kind of the final step before you and you go live as they get to meet you. This is a personal thing, home care. We know that. And we had our caregivers, us in the middle of a big room and residents and here's us and we're privileged to be here. Here's what we can provide. Here's how you can communicate with us. You know, we let them ask questions. They get a feel for you. and who you are. And then we did it online with the family members too. That was real important because they're typically the ones paying the bills, like I did for my mom. And I was, caregiver for my mom, and I was also point of power of attorney for my mom. So you want to meet them, and they can see you and do the same thing. This is what we do. Here's how you communicate with us. We're going to do this. So you basically it's that that step before you go live. I don't know, Gina, Micah, if you want to add anything about our experiences and anything I missed in terms of this important step.
I think it's really important that once we told them how to communicate with us, that if there was an immediate care need, they'd pick up the phone and call us. But they had a question about the schedule, a question about the bill, because especially in that big community, we were just bombarded. So we asked them to email it, and we set up a group email. So everybody on that community team got the email, and we promised them we would get back to them within a day. And sometimes that was, I'm doing more research. I got your email and I'm doing research and I'm going to let you know the answer about your invoice question. But once we established that they could reach out and get to us, um, they really calmed down because the other agency, that's like the phone rings, nobody answers it. I email, nobody responds. So we said, please save the phone calls for an emergency because everybody wants their questions answered, but you're taking the staff away from taking care of the residents. So they're like, okay, all right. And so then it worked really well. And our staff was really on it. So whoever in the circle that got the email, whoever was going to answer said, I've got this one. And we replied to the group.
Yeah.
It was like, I got it. And so we're like, okay, they've got that one. And so we never let it drop. And we built a lot of trust. And it was a tough time. It was COVID, and the other agency, they had challenges. So, but
Well, they ducked it a lot of times,
yeah.
and we didn't. It warms my heart. Mike, I see you smiling. You're part of this. You're ingrained. Um, but we used that in our entire agency. I got this. That became kind of a mantra for us. Everybody, so anybody in that chain, and Micah knows this. If I didn't see, I gave it a certain, when I see the email and then the clock would start ticking and I didn't see I got this, I'd go, okay, who's got it? Micah knows it. Gina knows it. And it's like, oh, Micah's, I forgot to tell you, I got it. Um, but, because communication, right? You talk to people in our, when we were agency owners, there's nothing more important than communication. We talk about people, but communication. And the other part of our technology, you want to make sure this is part of it, is the family portal. Now I know what technologies have it. With Cinch, we do too. And anybody the client gives access to, and it could be the community care coordinator, besides the family, can access schedules and see who did it and when did it. And that also cuts down on phone calls. But it is full transparency, so caution, right? What's in there, they're going to see it. So if there's certain notes, you know, remember it's a transparent system, right? So the step seven, the launch is you have all those things ready and teed up, and hopefully that's a real fun time, an exciting time, and relaunch. And what we did when you're coming into a community where you're replacing a failed or there's problems, say give us 45 days to really get our arms around this.
Mhm.
We're not going to change something right out of the gate, um, but stand by. We're gonna we'll report back to you, and we did. Typically, the change is pricing of services, the way you're delivering the services is number one, right? Um, there may be some other things like pending calls and getting a feel for how that's going, and we can tell you some cool stories on that one too. Um, but yeah, this is the final step, and it launched with purpose. This is you. You're a very personal business, so want to put your best foot forward and get your team involved, so they see your team. This is Team is all, that's what elder care is about, right? It's a team sport. How can we help? Sometimes just listening to you, you need a sounding board, blow off some steam. Um, yeah, we learned a lot. So we saved all our templates. We developed what we call CINCH operating system. It's this methodology for how we approach and get up and running, with all the things recommended. Kind of there's prepare for community where we help people find and get in, and then community ready is the whole ball of wax for you to not only do that but operate everything you need. There's quite a bit when you think about it, because it's a different business, different training. You got to train your caregivers on each community, where to go, where to park, what to wear, who to talk to. There's a lot of stuff. Service agreement is different than your standard service agreement with their cancellation policy and so on and so. There's other tweaks to it, um, and there's just a lot. There's a lot to it. The good news is, we can help you. You know, we've been there, and really all what really excites us is light bulbs go on, and where you're struggling now, we just love hearing from our customers that we've made a difference. It's just like you guys when you get feedback from a client, how you've made a difference in their lives, right? We're just doing it a different way now than we were. We're providing you the tools and certain knowledge to hopefully make you even better than you are, because you're good as it is. We're just trying to help you be the best you can be, the best version. I think we just like the best version of ourselves. Um, our playbook is really the blog, uh, but I made a PDF of it so you have it, and post this. I'm going to have a link where people know us. We have our PDF and the playbook, um, to how to do this. We're going to wrap up now. I wanted to preview our next one and have a little fun because we like having fun. But our next webinar coming up on the 14th is fractional care in senior ILs doesn't have to be difficult, or to take a page out of Amstel Light in 1999. If everybody remembers that commercial about um, light beer, we're from Cinch. We didn't know community care had to suck, because it doesn't. It doesn't. And it did. It did. I mean, Gina looked at me and said, "Let's get out of here unless we can figure this out." Right? This is this is a mess. And a lot of times in life you sit back and you go, "I have a problem." Turns out that you're the problem. You always self-reflect, right? And sometimes we were our own worst enemy to start with, and so okay, there was other factors, but let's get our act together, and then we can start effectively addressing the other things that are causing this to be painful, and and it can work, and you can have a life. In fact, I'll just full transparency. We felt as we were ending, as we were selling our agency, and Micah was in tears, and no, I mean, we were, um, we said, this is great. We'd much prefer doing community care. We just loved it. It was just different. We made relationships with the community. They really depended on us. We built relationships, but it was like a machine. It would run. Versus we know in your traditional world, you live and die by 24/7. We had one month we lost three big ones, and it almost took us to our knees. And that's very stressful, right? I mean, that's life, right? But this, when you get it operating, there'll be residents that pass away or move on, but your census will stay there, and you're going to stay there. And if you do a good job, it's really recurring. So with this webinar, we're just going to, there's obviously correlation to what we just kind of covered, but we're going to really emphasize how it could really work, and it can work well, and cover those. And if you want to read about it, it's on our blog today. If you just go to the bottom of our website. I know, in the bottom of our blogs, we have a blog, and that's what we're going to be covering. So I encourage you, and Ken, I'll expect you to show up. of course, because Ken's on a roll. I think we need to give him some type of award card.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, it is 1:43. I wanted to leave at least 15 minutes for you all for questions, but um, we really enjoyed telling that story. Um, and I want to open up to the floor for any type of questions. Hey,
All right,
Ken.
Ken.
Thank you. Well, if you get a spreadsheet with 30 clients and you've got it, you've got to do it. Coming from a traditional home care, if we're looking at 30 clients, you're going to need a whole lot of caregivers in order to cover that. I guess I'm just looking, it's a general question. What amount of caregivers in a fractional care setting are you really looking at to serve 30 people?
Well, it really depends on the services that they want or they ask for. I mean, do I need 6 visits a day or do I just want 3 showers a week? So it really, it's just like traditional. Your 24/7 needs a whole lot more caregivers than somebody who just wants 4 hours a day on weekdays. So the first thing you do is you assess what their visits are, how many visits are there. Um, and then we have to do a lot of negotiating where everybody can't have the 7:30 visit, And no, I'm not going to give an hour and a half shower in the morning because that's the busiest time. So we only did 15 minutes before breakfast, 15-minute visits before breakfast. So we didn't do showers because so many people want and need that care, the medication reminder, a little help getting dressed. So that's how we learned to manage the community. But if you had 30, when we've had 30, that would be 2 to 3 caregivers in the morning, where one would stay, like 6 to 2, and the others might leave at lunchtime. And then 1 or 2 caregivers in the evening, depending on, we did a lot of evening showers. So maybe 2 caregivers in the evening, depending on how many showers we had going. Um, so that would be a pretty good business, that would be when that first one we started. And that was back in the end of 2016. And that was about 350,000 a year in
Right.
revenue.
Yep, that was the
So,
number.
so
Yep. And yeah, I think benchmarking and statistics, we've gone through this a lot. And we looked at our customers and how that's panning out. But when you're going into an IL community, a good rule of thumb is 20%. So if it's 100 residents, 20% apply that's a good bogey, 20. And in terms of Ken, that great question. What we found in these communities, a lot of them like 145-ish and so forth, ILs, and we had 30-ish on service. That was usually 2 caregivers, in the morning slot, and then a break, and then an evening slot. Pretty consistent. But Gina's right. And one of the things that Cinch is great, it's like a Tetris puzzle. You put it all on the whiteboard, and then you can see your loading. You can, that the visual schedule. That was one thing she absolutely asked for with Cinch. And once you go through the assessments, you get that data, you can kind of look at it and see how that stacks up. But that's a good rule of thumb. 30-ish is you can count on 2 and 2. Um, you know, in that. So thanks for asking that great question.
Thank you both.